So I won't take much of the time. Let's hear from him what he would like to add to this. Okay. So we have Mr. Gregory Giannakau. Oh, thank
you. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. It's especially nice to see young ladies here. Many times in the United States, when we think of startup businesses, the women get excluded in that conversation or in that mention. The true story is that in the United States, 85% of all businesses actually have less than 20 employees. And out of those 85% of businesses, 40% are owned by women. But if you speak to people generally about business in the United States, that fact is overlooked because everyone wants to be working with the Fortune 5,000, which are companies that do hundreds of millions of businesses. You may be familiar with the Fortune 5,000, as we call it. And that's true. It would be nice if that was one of your big customers. Several problems with that. It's very hard because in the United States, although many people look at it as the land of opportunity, that's what other people say, or the American dream, it's not easy. It's very difficult, actually. The opportunity actually lies in Pakistan and other developing countries. If I was to start a business now, having been here only a few days and reading up online, I would choose to come to Pakistan and start a company. The other thing about dealing with the Fortune 5,000 is what happens is in a business, when you get a very large customer, you're very excited, you tell your parents, you tell everybody on LinkedIn, you tell the world with press releases. I think I should probably speak a little slower. So you are very glad about this large customer, but it's dangerous to the point of causing failure sometimes if you have too much of your percentage of sales with a very large customer. So at first, when you get a very large customer, like a Fortune 5,000 company, you are very excited and you tend to gear up. You hire more people, you get more equipment, you make contracts, commitments with suppliers so you get a lower price. But when that Fortune 5,000 company gets a better price or changes their strategy or closes their doors on a certain product line, you're left, you say left in the lurch, you're left kind of an orphan. And now you have these commitments with other suppliers for thousands of dollars a month. You have 15 extra people that you don't really want to fire them. And you have equipment that you still owe money on. And so when people look at the United States, they go, wow, that company's really booming. But underneath the covers, you have to look and be very careful when you start a business not to have too much of your sales dependent on large companies. Also, the thing I find when I talk to people who want to start a company, and many people contact me in person or online or meet with a group like this, they say, well, they want to do something like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, all the names that we can all know very well the names. The problem is those are outliers. You only get 1 out of a million people who start a company like that. I'm not trying to discourage you from starting with Microsoft or the next Facebook, and you can learn a lot of things from looking at them. But if you think that when you leave the house in the morning, you're going to get with 2 friends, and the reason we want to get together today is build Facebook and make billions of dollars and have 800 million users. It's interesting if you look at the history of Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg, you'll find out that he only started it so he could meet girls on his campus. He didn't start a big company. He didn't plan to build a big company. He only wanted to make friends and, like I say, meet girls. And at first it was only for universities because he didn't even think of making it a business. It was only a way to meet people on campuses. So even Mark Zuckerberg did not leave the house in the morning or go to school and say, I'm going to start a big company that's going to make me billions of dollars. Maybe it's not wrong to think that way, but remember that most of the people in the world, most of the businesses in the world have less than 20 employees. So I would say that when you start a company, don't think of being Instagram, but think of something that you really like to do. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about opportunity. Rayhan, how did you want me to proceed with this? There's going to be questions and answers. You want me to talk a little bit?
Talk about a little bit about what you have done, like what kind of companies you have built, and so.
All right. Even myself, I never left the house thinking I was going to build something so big. I've been working since I was 11 years he made liquid detergent that you squirt. It's very simple. Take the top off, you put it in, you wash your dishes. Nothing very glorifying about that. But what he did was, he saw the future a little bit way back years ago before they had plastic bottles. So there was no plastic bottle, believe it or not. Liquid detergent and even bathtub soap came in glass bottles. So they tend to break because glass all over the kitchen. And it was just difficult to use because you couldn't squeeze it with one hand. You had to top off. So the first thing he did was, he looked at that and said, this should be plastic. And this was 1958, 59, 1,000 years ago, when there were no plastic bottles in the United States. Believe it or not, the United States was not the first to make plastic bottles. The machines were made in Italy. There's a certain part of Italy where they are experts in creating packaging equipment. So if you get little biscuits that are wrapped in plastic, probably was invented in Italy. Plastic bottle that you squeeze and top pops, probably invented in Italy. So my father, in 1959, got a machine from Italy shipped in boxes to the United States in wooden crates. But when he opened it, there were some parts missing. No internet, no FedEx. You had to get on the phone or write a letter. They had to send you a part. So he decided to buy a machine to make the parts. So he made his own parts that were missing and the repair parts. That became a pretty large company. I only mention that to say that the way we do things now isn't so much different than the way we did things back before the internet, before FedEx, before cheap calls, before Skype. And that is, when you come across a problem, you have to solve the problem somehow. I've been around it since I was 11, and so I started a number of companies, as many people do when they're teenagers. When I went to university, it was that year that the government came out with a rebate program that as long as you were in university, they would send you $150 if you filed a tax return, but most people didn't know about that rule. And so I started a tax preparation company. I would charge a student $25 with a guarantee that he'd get $150 in 3 weeks. And so there were so many students in the university that some lived in this building, some lived in that building, some in that. So I sold like franchises. You could keep half the money. You would handle building 1 and you would handle building 2 and you would talk to the engineering students. And so that kind of made me feel I didn't need to go to university. So actually the truth is I only went 1 year and some to the university because there was so many opportunities I saw that maybe it would have been a good idea to stay for my MBA, but there was just too much excitement going on. And this was many years ago in the early 70s when we didn't have FedEx, cheap calls, Skype, Instagram, Zuckerberg, internet. Time went on and I got involved in real estate development, and that wasn't because I woke up and said I want to be a real estate developer. I was doing taxes for people, and that led me to a lawyer who was putting together investment packages. They'd take $10,000 from all of you, put it together, have $2 million, and then go to a business deal, split the money. So that exposed me to that, and I thought, that's really interesting. That's a lot better to work in Florida where it's warm than Canada where it was cold. That was half of my decision making, was I wanted to be in a nice warm place. And so I flew down to Florida and started doing business deals. Now I had an unfair advantage because as an American, I could do deals for Canadians who weren't allowed to buy the U.S. product at that time. So we were making tremendous amounts of money. I'd fly down on a Friday. I'd meet the sales manager. Unfair advantage that we knew the sales manager. And so I would say, which properties are you going to raise the price on next week? It was a hot market. He'd say, well, these 5 properties we're going to raise the price on next week. So I would buy those 5 properties on a Friday. He would sell them on a Monday, and we would make all that extra profit. He'd make commission 2 times, and we'd make half of that profit in between. That was an unfair advantage. But it was available to anybody. Anybody could have done that, but we just pressed it a little bit and found that opportunity. Then went to the Cayman Islands, and we found that property along the water was selling for a very high price. But property along the water was almost impossible to buy because it was a very high price. But as we drove around the island, to small islands, the road typically follows the shoreline. In some places it's from here to quite a bit away. Beautiful land, that's where you want to live. But I found some land that was actually only from here to that wall from the water. So it wasn't very valuable, it was cheap. So nobody wanted it because you couldn't build on it. There was the sand, there was the water, there was the sand, here's the road. And over here was totally vacant land. And that land was pretty cheap because it had weeds on it, and it wasn't on the water, it was on the road. So I thought, what's the challenge here? The only challenge here is that the road is in the way. If the road was over there, this would be valuable. Well, if the road wasn't here, this land would be valuable. So we paid to move the road. And so we moved the road 300 feet this way after we bought this land and after we bought that land. We paid to move the road, and now I had an instant waterfront property that was worth 10 times more than we paid for it, even when we took away the money for the road. Now, anybody could have done that, especially the people living there who drove that road every day for 50 years, and it never occurred to them that the road there, the road's not the problem, but the road there is a problem. By moving the road, we created $1 million profit. All through my life, I've had an unfair advantage, as I call it, because I believe that I've been able to see, like with X-ray vision, opportunities, and yet the people that lived in that area were actually, it was available to them as well. So I got into real estate development because of that, and I found pieces of land and divided them up, and I built shopping centers and office buildings, and that was really interesting for a while. That was fun. I built a piece of property that a farmer had owned for 60 years. It never occurred to him that if he chopped it in two, he'd get double the money. Did things like that, so that was fun. When the internet came along, I found out about the internet. I stumbled across it in 1992, before you could buy an internet access. People forget that in the United States, in the early 90s, you couldn't get an internet account. There were no internet accounts. And the universities had access to the internet first. But you couldn't get internet access unless you were a student. And the people that were students weren't using it because nobody knew about it. So I started a project, an educational project, so that the university would give me free internet access in return for doing this international project, an educational product. I designed a book, I sold the book, did a lot of research for 8 months, sold the book, and then I got frustrated that there were no internet access providers, so I decided to start one. So I called the equipment companies, and they said, we don't know how to start one, but we'll sell you the equipment. So I bought some servers and so on, and one thing led to another, and I made a deal, and I became the third number 3 provider